So good evening, and welcome along to this week's show. We've got a music special this week. Singer-songwriter Joby will be live in the NVTV studios. I'll be chatting to Belfast-born guitarist Peter Bullick and his wife Deborah Bonham, who's also the sister of Led Zeppelin legend John Bonham. We're going to find out about their brand new music project a little bit later on. We'll be catching up with the winners as well of this year's James Dyson Awards. But to start things off on the show this week, I've been chatting to Neil Johnston from Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke about their brand new blood pressure campaign. Here's what happened. Neil, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So tell us about the latest campaign then, because the figures of people living with high blood pressure are actually quite startling, aren't they?
It is quite startling. I mean, it's basically over 250,000 people that we know about have high blood pressure, but there's somewhere over 100,000 that are out there with high blood pressure and completely unaware, perhaps, that they have high blood pressure. It's not one of those things that there are symptoms about. So you could be fit and healthy, have your weight under control, no smoking, moderate alcohol intake, but you could have high blood pressure, and now you're putting yourself at risk of either a cardiac event or a stroke.
And of course, the scary thing is we know that it's called the silent killer as well. So people living with it don't know they have it.
No, that's it. I mean, and that's why we're very much trying to raise public awareness and encourage people, to sort of know their numbers, to go to their GP, maybe to the pharmacist as another alternative, or in fact, if they can afford to get their own machine and monitor their own blood pressure and make sure that basically it's 140/90. And if you're above that, you should probably take action, probably go and see your GP.
Exactly. Now, we all know it's not the easiest thing in the world to get an appointment with our GPs these days as well, and people might be a little bit reluctant to contacting their GP.
Sure, but at the end of the day, your health is the most important thing, and GPs are there. I mean, yes, we're in a new sort of setup really where it is slightly more difficult to get an appointment, but it is possible to get an appointment. And I think if people take the time, make an appointment, and get seen, then they can, if they get it done now and everything's fine, puts their mind at rest. And I say what we're recommending really is that people should be tested every 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think if you've never had it done and you're not aware, I would very much encourage you to do it. Obviously, large swathes of the population actually do know their blood pressure because maybe they've got an underlying condition and they're seeing the doctor fairly frequently. But if you're one of those people out there who's just never had it done or haven't had it done in years, then we really would urge you to go and try and get your blood pressure checked.
Now, I do have one of the machines at home, but I stay away from it because I know if I start using it, I'll be testing myself all the time.
There's no harm in that, and it doesn't take you long, Robin, to do it. And one of the added attractions of doing it yourself at home is that you don't get this sort of what they call white coat syndrome, where I would know a number of people, loads of people, in fact, who when they go to the GP, they have very high blood pressure, but actually when they take it in the calmness and privacy of their own home, they're coming in fine. And actually to do that maybe once a week or once a fortnight, it's not a huge undertaking, and it's a good idea and great that you've invested in a machine.
Tell us about some of the things that Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke have got lined up, because you've got information online obviously at the minute as well. You've got a health check service too, haven't you?
Yeah, we've got a lot of information online, and obviously people are more than welcome to visit our website, which is nshs.org.uk. But we're also running a public campaign, so essentially there'll be billboards about, there'll be lots of stuff on social media, Facebook, Instagram, all of these things, basically drawing attention to the issue in general and drawing attention, suggesting people go to their GP, go to their pharmacy or get a machine, or as you say, perhaps make an appointment on our health checks. We are out doing health checks in the community at the minute and in our HQ in Belfast, although we are a small charity, relatively limited resources, and we're pretty booked up at the minute, truth be told. But yes, we very much encourage people, and we are doing it in conjunction with Mace. We will be going out to some of their stores and doing blood checking in some of the Mace stores throughout the country.
And you're also hosting an online blood pressure advice session on the 27th of September.
We are, yeah. And again, I very much encourage people, particularly if, like yourself, Robin, you've got the machine at home. We'll be demonstrating, so just you can tune in and check you're doing it correctly. So yeah, we'll have a range of physicians, doctors and whatnot on that call. on that online thing, so people can dial in and watch that and submit questions and things.
And as well as the blood pressure campaign, you guys seem really busy with all the rest of your fundraising activities as well. Earlier on this year, I was hosting the Red Dress Run for you up in Stormont as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably best known for fundraising and for our care services, looking after people who've had stroke or have had respiratory conditions. But actually, a big side of our work is this whole prevention agenda, and we're trying to raise awareness of that. And we're very much encouraging government to do more on this. I say we're doing our public awareness campaign, but we're very much calling on our assembly members to get into office and pressure, and get the health department to do more on this whole prevention agenda, whether it's blood pressure, or another one is atrial fibrillation, which puts people at risk of stroke, which again can be detected very, very simply with a 1-minute test.
Yes.
And we have very much, there's just so much more can be done on the prevention side. I think it is the case that obviously the media and politicians and perhaps all of us are focused in sometimes on the whole waiting list saga and the current crises in the health service. But actually one of the answers to those, how do we deal with those problems, is to do more on the prevention, so that there are less people ending up on the waiting lists and in an A&E in the first place.
Yes, yeah.
By just getting them to get checked, and then if it turns out you've got high blood pressure, you can lower your salt, lower your alcohol intake, eat more healthily, take a bit more exercise, and try and lower that, or if needs be, go on medication and hopefully live a long and happy life.
Exactly, and the scary thing is it's not just people of a certain age now who suffer from this. It can really happen to even younger people, couldn't it?
No, absolutely. And again, we can't emphasize this enough. We had somebody in one of our health checks this week who came in fit as a fiddle, really a picture of health. Really was quite unbelieving that they had such high blood pressure. Went to see the GP put them on medication, and I think they're actually off work at the minute because it was dangerously high. And the GP obviously, was delighted in ways that we had brought that to his attention, so that he can do something about it and avoid, as you say, a fit and active person maybe been struck down with a heart attack or a stroke.
Well, if people want some more information on your blood pressure sessions and advice, give us the website details they can go to.
It's nichs.org.uk.
Neil, thank you so much for coming in and joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we did promise you some great music guests on the show this week, and I've been chatting to Belfast-born guitarist Peter Bullock and his wife, who is also the little sister of Led Zeppelin legend John Bonham. So here's what happened when I caught up with Peter Bullock and Debra Bonham. They've been telling me all about their brand new album.
Baby, can't you see what you're doing to me? Hey, baby, yeah. Can't you see what you're doing to me? Well, you say you're gonna leave me, darling, back to your old time used to be.
Guys, thank you for joining us. Great to talk to you today.
And you. Hello
Pleasure.
there, Robin.
Pleasure.
So we'll talk about the new album in just a second, but Deborah, I want to start with you because you are really rock royalty. You're the little sister of the late, great John Bonham, aren't you?
I am indeed, yeah. Yes, I am. And very proud of it too, so yeah.
And I have to ask, what was it like growing up with such a legend?
Well, it's all I sort of knew. I was 6 when he joined Zeppelin, and he was in bands before that, so it's all I knew. So it seemed pretty normal to me. I think it was anything but normal, really. But it's what you know, isn't it? So I never knew him any differently, except when I was really little, when he used to, take me to school or look after me, because he was a real beautiful, caring brother. There's a lot about John that people don't know. He gets this name of the madman of rock, or all of that, but he just wasn't that way. He was very, very, very kind and very, very loving, So yeah, I just remember growing up in that world, and I suppose I was always going to get it in that world myself, although he didn't want me to. So I think he thought there was no place for his little sister, really. But you got to follow your heart, haven't you? So
And were you always around guys like Robert Plant and people like that?
Yeah. I mean, Robert's still a very close friend. And you know, I keep in touch with Jimmy and John Paul Jones. We've always stayed in touch, which is great. But Robert particularly is very, very close. He's like a second brother to me, really. Yeah. So it was great. I mean, you know, I met a lot of people. I loved it. You know, I used to bunk off school. I went to a convent in our local town. And I used to bunk off school and take a change of clothes, get out the uniform, get on the train and go down to London to the Swan Song office, you know, because there was people like Bad Company, Paul Rogers hanging out there, Pretty Things, Maggie Bell. Led Zeppelin created their own label, Swan Song. So, and they had all these great bands. So, yeah, I used to go down there. And then one of the guy who worked for John, Rex King, used to turn up and find me and say, your brothers sent me to get you. And he'd drive me all the way back to the Midlands, you know. And I'd get back and John would be furious with me for bunking off and going down there. But yeah, it was great. It was definitely really good.
Now, Led Zeppelin did do their bit for tourism here in Northern Ireland because they featured the Giant's Causeway on one of their album covers.
They did indeed. And we've just featured it on a beautiful bronze memorial that we've done for my brother in our hometown in Redditch. And in actual fact, it was Pete's suggestion.
I managed to sneak that in.
Yeah, you got the Giant's Causeway in there, didn't you?
But we had a meeting with the sculptor, and he wanted the John and the drum kit to come up out of the ground, but he couldn't think of how to, where John meets the ground, what he could create there for it to be an interactive statue so that people could sit where they get their picture taken. And I just went, it could be the hexagonal rocks of the Giant's Causeway, and then he comes out of that because that was on the front cover of Houses of the Holy. And Robert Plant was with us in the meeting as well. And the head of the council in Redditch, she was a Belfast girl, went to Strathern.
Yeah, she did, didn't she?
Yeah, so it was...
so we got the planning, you know.
So
Great.
basically, the John Bonham Memorial has, was passed by a Belfast girl in Redditch with suggestions of... A Belfast bloke doing the Giant's Causeway.
It was almost like it was a fix, wasn't it? But it wasn't. It was just, luck would have it. It was a Belfast lass.
Yes.
And she gave us the planning, which was brilliant.
So there's quite a bit of Northern Ireland now in the memorial for John Bonham.
In the centre of Redditch, just south of Birmingham. Beautiful. It's so stunning. It's absolutely amazing bronze memorial. And we tied it in with Teenage Cancer Trust as well, because we raised so much money that we were able to tie it in as a long-lasting legacy for John, helping kids with cancer, you know. So it's been brilliant and still ongoing because we've had T-shirts and concerts and, you know, all sorts of things. And we've noticed that people tend to go there, and it's quite interactive because Pete's idea of the Giant's Causeway rocks, people are able to sit on it and have a photograph taken, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Yeah, it really is. So, yeah, it's good.
And of course, a lot of people still remember the Led Zeppelin concert at the Ulster Hall when they played Stairway to Heaven.
Heaven. I know. He wasn't. You were a bit too young, weren't you? See, I was going to Zepp concerts at 6 years old.
Put it this, was that 1971 or something?
It was, yeah.
In 1980, I wasn't even allowed to go and see Led Zeppelin in Nebworth because I was too young. So what chances did I get to see them in 71 in Belfast?
So Peter, growing up in Belfast, was there always music around you?
Well, I never grew up.
Yeah, that's a bit of a question. I mean, I've been with him 31 years, and no, growing up hasn't featured in our relationship at all.
Yeah, I seem to go backwards, actually. It was but,
for Christmas.
Yeah, go. I'm not bursting into song just yet. Yes, it did. I had an uncle who was 3 years older than me, and they lived in, as we were just talking about beforehand, there, Castlereagh in my granny's house, and I used to go there every single weekend. And he got a guitar, and of course I then had to get a guitar because he got a guitar, and he had worked stuff out, and I'd be copying him, and that became our lives. All our school holidays, after school, weekends, everything was just sitting, listening to records and moving them back and trying to play guitar.
He became quite...
He was... Paul Rowan was my uncle, and he became quite well known in Belfast around the sort of club scene there. He had the band Lunatic Fringe. He had oh God, what was the Ballroom Blitz and all that? They'd play the Empire and all that kind of stuff. Paul sadly died 4 years ago of cancer, and I've been over to Belfast a couple of times since doing memorial concerts for him, linked with the Gerald Dignan Cancer Trust. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but Paul used to raise money for that when he was alive. So we continued Paul's band in Belfast once a year at the Empire, raising money for the same kids' cancer charity that Gerald Dignan set up. So yeah, so that was it. Paul was he was a big bowling and David Bowie fan, and he used to dress up like them and all that kind of thing and do fancy nights at the Empire. But back in the early days, Free was our band that we Free and Bad Company were the bands that we sort of.
That was your
copied.
Auntie Irene, who still lives in. She lives in Bangor.
Yeah, that was her that got us both into that.
Now, talking about Free, because you would then go on to tour with the great Paul Rodgers, wouldn't you?
I know. I mean, how lucky is that? It's I mean, apart from getting a great gig, it was just ridiculous that I got a great gig with my favourite band ever. So it's like just.
And your second favourite singer?
I'm my second favourite singer. Because I'm with my first favourite here, you know.
I said to him, well, if you're going to go and sing, play with another singer, at least he can sing. You know?
I guess I've got to say I'm my favourite male singer.
At least he's a great singer, so you're all right.
Yeah, no, that was great. That tour was that started in the noughties, around 2004. We toured supporting Paul Rodgers, and he kind of I think he sort of heard the old rather than saying copying, we'll call it, I think the term is influences. So yeah, we had sat together and we did one or two of these concerts a year since 2009 in Chichester, and then eventually Paul said, why don't we take this on tour? And it was Debbie's band. It was just Paul Rodgers with all of Debbie's band. So it was me, Rich Newman on drums. Rich, funny enough, used to play with Rory Gallagher. Rich was Rory's last drummer for the last 5 years of Rory's life. So there's Rich Newman, Ian Rowley on bass, Gerard Lewis on keyboards. And they've been our long-term band for, 20 plus years. And they've done the new album with us as well. And Paul Rodgers used us all for those charity concerts. And then he said, I think we'll take this on the road. What do you think? And it was, what? And it was basically, we're in a coffee shop. And on a napkin and a pen he was writing, let's do a UK tour. They do all those old venues that we used to do with Free and all that kind of stuff. And so up we come, and I knew the names because I used to read all the music press in Belfast, like Sounds, Melody Maker, NME and all that. And it would have a list of all these venues, and I used to dream of going there one day, Leicester, De Montfort Hall, Bristol, Colston Hall, Hammersmith, all this, Manchester, Newcastle City Hall, all those kind of Birmingham Town Hall. And then I said, can we put in the Ulster Hall? You memorised them, didn't you? I did, yeah. Well, they were stuck in my mind because I'd just, as a child, I'd just look at the music press and just dream of being in England so that I could go and see that band at that hall. Or that. So, those halls. So we got to play all these halls, except the tour manager or the management decided going across the water to Ireland would be too expensive, and Ulster Hall didn't get included in it. That was
such a shame, and a mistake. I think it was a real mistake.
I was absolutely gutted by that. So it's still my dream to play there one day.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever played there.
Tell us about the new album, because it's doing really well. It's been really well received, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely thrilled with it. It was just a change. It's been a slight shift for us. It's always, I guess, because I was already, I'd got an album out before I'd met Pete. So
it was rubbish.
Actually, yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah, she didn't get good till I.
You know why? It's because I didn't produce it. Now I produced this one. This is why it's so good. I was able to cut you out of it.
Yeah, producing means telling me what to do.
Which is a daily occurrence for the last 32 years. But yeah, the new album, it was a slight change because it's always been a Deborah Bonham band, but mainly because I guess we felt that I was sort of established earlier on. But it's not. It's not about me. It's always been about us. It's always been about the band and how great the band is. And I just really thought this time I want it to be about the band. I don't want it to be about Deborah Bonham. And so we decided to call it Bonham Bullick, and they made such great headway doing the Paul Rogers, because I would open up the shows, and then they'd come on, and it really, you know, people started to see what a great band the Deborah Bonham band was, you know, without Deborah Bonham in it. So,
because after that British tour, we went out and did the American tour with Jeff Beck and Ann Wilson from Heart. Wow. And Debra would open the show, then Ann Wilson would go on from Heart. And then Paul Rogers and Jeff Beck would flip, they called it flip-flop in the headline. So one night we'd headline, the next night Jeff would headline. That was good fun. So we're having to get up and play a load of guitar solos in front of Jeff Beck.
You want to try singing in front of Ann Wilson? That was no easy thing either. And she watched me every night at the side of the stage. I was like, oh, good grief. Oh, wow. So I really had to lift it up. But the album, it was, so after that, I just thought I really want it to be, you know, about the band. And so then I thought, well, I don't want to bring my own songs to it, because then I'm ahead of them, really. I want to sort of be on an equal playing field and to do other people's songs, so that, you know, it's a coming together of all of us.
And Peter, do you have a favourite song from the album?
Favourite? Well, that's quite a movable feast, because it's a favourite one. I think sometimes it's Trouble Blues, because that has quite a haunting little, it's very slow and deep. And Deb came up with a great idea on the production of that and make it totally different. And I get to do a sort of guitar solo, which kind of is haunting in a kind of a early Fleetwood Mac, Peter Green kind of way. But it was quite funny to do it, because I thought it was, when we recorded it, I thought, oh, that's me. And then playing it back, everybody goes, God, that sounds like Peter Green. You don't deliberately go out to do it, but of course you've sucked up all this information as a kid like a sponge, so it's all in there, all those great guitarists and stuff, even more modern things like Gary Moore sometimes. But it's a...
Have you had a lot of coffee this morning?
I have, yeah. Yeah, I was just trying to get it out.
Great to see both of you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin.
So as I walk around Belfast, I'm discovering new things all the time. I never knew there was a Snow Patrol plaque outside the Duke of York. So there we go. Anyway, let's move on to our next guests. And I've been chatting to the winners of this year's James Dyson Award 2022. Let's find out who the winners are.
Dotplot is a breast health monitoring tool that we intend for women to use at home.
You have a system which can basically build a map of your torso onto the software. You will get a report if there's any abnormality that's been flagged compared to the previous month.
And even though we're not replacing medical professionals, we are just enabling women to be confident in the self-checks that they're doing. Some people feel that, oh, you know, women just don't take their breasts because they're not interested or they don't care. But actually, a lot of the time it's because they want to check, but they're just confused.
The James Dyson Award makes you want to go for it.
The goal is for breast self-checks to become routine and to catch any suspicious changes as early as possible. Winning this really takes us to the next level of our development.
Welcome to the show. So tell me this, how does it feel to win that prestigious award then?
Oh, this is an amazing feeling. It's honestly unreal. I still can't really quite believe it's happened. But we're really, really excited to see like what kind of value winning this has been adding to Dotplot already. Our social media is going crazy. Sign-ups are going crazy as well. So it's been amazing. Really great feeling.
So tell us about the Dotplot device then. How can it aid the early detection of breast cancer?
Yeah, so I mean, Dotplot is just a tool that we've created to help women through their self-checks, to guide them through that process. Because at the moment, it can be quite confusing to know how you're supposed to be checking your breast tissue and like what method you should be using, because there's so many out there. It's really confusing. And so we're just trying to make that as clear as possible to make the process really easy to follow and usable by as many people as possible. So yeah, we just have a little handheld device and app that works together to guide you through that process and make sure that your self-checks are done as thoroughly as possible.
So tell us a bit about the inspiration behind your invention. How did all this come about?
So I guess it actually started off when we were doing our masters together. We were working on a group project where we found that we were all quite interested in designing for healthcare and finding solutions that would be impactful within that space. Healthcare monitoring in particular was quite inspiring for us. And then we were having a discussion, and then Shefali was speaking about her experience of finding a lump. Do you want to share what happened?
Yeah, so I think it was during COVID, and I was just working out from home. And after a gym workout, I was just feeling that there's some sort of stiffness in the left breast. And I was just keen on figuring out what it exactly is, and went in for my gynae's appointment and asked her how women are actually engaging with these self-checks and what should I be doing in order to monitor it. Even though there was nothing at that point, it just got us thinking in terms of how do women gauge, or how do women understand what's actually within their breasts when they feel that there could be potentially something, and what are the various ways in which we can look after our breast health.
So is the device readily available at the minute then?
It's actually not. We are in our early stages of development, and we're, I think, a few years away from actually commercializing it. For our next milestone, it's just team building right now, getting our MVP out there, and then heading on for a clinical trial.
So there are other devices out there at the minute. So how does Dotplot differ to these other devices then?
No, I was going to say that right now, the only real solutions or devices specifically for checking one's breasts are all limited within the clinical space. So those are where the key competitors are. So there isn't really anything that is an at-home solution for helping women to do their self-checks in the privacy of their own homes. So I guess that's a key differentiator. And also, I mean, if you're looking at what exists to help you with self-checks right now, it's just like demonstrations or pamphlets and tutorials, which all don't really offer any like real-time feedback of how you're conducting the check, whether you've covered all the areas that need covering. And also it forces you to rely on your memory of what you felt in previous months, whereas Dotplot provides like monthly comparisons of your breast tissue readings to help identify any changes. So you're not having to rely on what you felt or what you remember feeling, but actually you can see real like quantitative data about what's happening within your breast tissue.
So this invention has come at a good time then, just as we're coming out of the pandemic, and some people are still concerned about contacting their GP. So this is a device that they can use at home.
Yeah, exactly that.
Now there's also over 11,000 breast cancer deaths in the UK each year, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the numbers are staggering. It's really quite scary. And so but we know that when detected on time, the survival rates, they go through the roof up to like 95%, which is why Dotplot is aiming to help drive down the number of cancer cases that are detected at the later stages, and just ensure that women are catching any suspicious changes as early as possible to increase their survival chances and their treatment options as well.
So what's the next step then? Where are you going to take Dotplot next? What's the plans for the future?
I think with the funding that we get from here and the funding that we're also planning to acquire from grants and stuff, our next stage is to build a team for it, make sure we have a product ready by the end of this year so that we can go into clinical trials and do data gathering studies for the next year.
Well, the best of luck with the invention, and once again, congratulations on winning the James Dyson Award.
Thank you so much for having us.
So congratulations to the winners of the James Dyson Award 2022. Time now to meet my final guest on the show this week. He's a singer-songwriter from Belfast. He's also part of the fabulous group Energy Orchard, and he's back with some brand new material. He played live for us in the NVTV studio earlier on this week. So here is Joby Fox.
We're all in trouble, so get your coat and shovel. We'll bury Brexit on the border tonight. The party's swinging back to the beginning. They give the people such a terrible fright. Oh, we're all going the wrong way, but everybody wants to have the say. Oh, just just let's face it, we gotta live in peace and love someday. Oh, we're living on a rock. We just can't stop to chase the Brexit blues away. Hey, yeah, yeah. Stock up your groceries, your meat, your veg and poultry, 'cause nothing here is gonna be the same. The chlorine's waiting, just anticipating. You know it's coming to you anyway. Oh, we're all going the one way, but we haven't been there before. Oh, it's a cultural revolution. Man's tongue is knocking on your door. Oh, we're living on a rock. We just can't stop to chase the Brexit blues away. We'll all be working to build the Iron Curtain, while Boris Johnson's down at Saint-Tropez. And all the artists, the European smartest, have all mysteriously ran away. Oh, we don't know where we're going. Everybody's on a mystery trip. Oh, just let's face it, everybody's just talking. Oh, we're living on a rock. We just can't stop to chase the Brexit blues away. The Brexit blues. The Brexit blues.
There we go. That's a track called Brexit Blues from Joby Fox, and I'm pleased to say Joby joins us in the studio. How are you?
Not too bad. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been too long, hasn't it?
It has.
We'll talk about what you've been up to in a second, but tell me about that song, Brexit Blues. Fascinated to know the story behind that.
Love to tell the story about it. It was, I think it was about 3 years ago. I was invited to up to a peace conference up in the Shankill Road. Up in the Spectrum Centre, and it was basically themed around peace. A lot of Europeans coming in and all the rest of it. But there was a big, at that time, Brexit was a big thing on the news and all the rest of it. Still is probably. But they said, come along the first day of the conference, mingle with a few people and write, then go away and write a song.
Yeah.
And it has to be based around Brexit, the theme of Brexit. So I was like, right, no problem, bit of a challenge. Like, it basically broke up till about 12 hours. So as a songwriter, I'm going, God, 12 hours, I have to write the song. And then the next day, second day, I had to come along and perform it.
Yeah.
And I think it was commissioned by the guys on the Lower Shankill, the circus people down there. And anyhow, so I went away and thought, Brexit what? Brexit blues, real cop out for a songwriter, you know what I mean, blues, So I stuck 3 verses together, and I couldn't believe it myself. It was a real challenge, I was under pressure, there's no doubt about it. But then I came back the next morning, I kind of fluffed it up because, it wasn't lodged in my brain. But since then, it's been a song that I enjoy playing immensely, and when you travel and you tell the story about it. So 12 hours later, I had the song, and I performed it there, as I said. I fluffed it up a wee bit, but now it's just a song I love to do.
Yeah. So what about the whole songwriting process for you then? Because you like to take yourself away. I remember you telling me one time you took yourself off to the Catskill Mountains to write.
That's right. That was just a fantastic opportunity too. There's it's one of the oldest arts communities in America, and the people that actually built the thing about 120 years ago, it was, they said that it was up the mountains. They said that the climate up there was conducive for the artists, Sounds like a load of rubbish to me, but that's the kind of place it was. It was all about the art, all about the creative process, and it's right beside Woodstock, the village. Yeah. And I won a bursary, I think, to go over there, and myself and Sophie and Rory We spent 4 weeks there, and we were in a log cabin, and I'd done a load of writing there, and it was I really appreciate it. It was a great honour to be there. There were lots of other artists from around the world, and Bob Dylan had a house just on up the mountain itself.
Wow.
And I was just to be in the proximity, you know, basically on the same planet as Bob Dylan is just a great honour, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and you know, it was just, everything about it was just amazing, you know, and I hooked up with Steve Earle, he's an old friend of mine. Yeah, Steve was just up the road about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And he was doing a songwriting clinic.
Yeah, okay.
And I went in there, and the crack was 90 and everything, and you know, it feels good, that kind of thing.
What about writing a song like Belfast, because you did that with Energy Orchard, and it's a song that you'll never be able to get away from, because it was an anthem, wasn't it, really?
Okay, I mean, especially back in the day, and I didn't really appreciate it, you know, what it meant to people, to be honest with you, because I was in a bubble, you know, and I mean, I wrote the song when I was 17, and then 10 years later, signed to MCA Records with Energy Orchard, and the record company thought it was going to be the best tune to put out, you know, and it was successful, and it was, as I said, I was kind of touring, you know, we toured that album for about 18 months, and I didn't understand the impact that it was having on people, and it was many years later, you know, a few people, like, people were crying and all and everything, you know, so that song meant so much to me, you know. I'm like, what's this all about? But now as I got older, I began to really appreciate it, you know, and a few other kind of songwriters that have done well here, maybe 10 years younger than me, maybe, and they said to me, you know, look, that song was important to me. It showed me that I could do something with my songwriting, and you know, so you know, it's almost like I don't own it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just I was the sort of catalyst for it. It was the time that we were living in, and you know, of course, I enjoy playing it still and all the rest of it. But I don't. There's a slight detachment between me and the song itself. Once the song's out, it's out and it's gone.
Yes,
you know, it belongs to everybody, not me really.
And you know what, it still sounds great on the radio today, it really does.
Well, thank you, because I know you've played it a few times.
Talking about the city of Belfast, it's no longer your home. You've left us for somewhere outside Copenhagen, haven't you?
Don't be telling anybody where I live, please, Rob.
Why did you make the change? Why have you left us then?
Well, I met Sophie, we met 18 years ago along the street in Belfast, up in Botanic there. And, you know, fast forward 18 years, and I'm living in Denmark, 3.5 hours away from Copenhagen. And a young son, Rory Fox, 8 years of age. We're over there about 3 years now.
Yeah.
3 years now, so I'm settled in now.
You seem very relaxed out there, you really do.
I'm absolutely loving it. I mean, I was absolutely terrified of the thought of living out in the countryside. But after the first 6 months, and that was 3 years ago, it was a strange time, the pandemic, all of that. And I wasn't getting out to play and much, and it was like, oh my God. So I was like forced into having to confront my new environment. And it was a wee bit dark to begin with, and then I came through it, and I went, my God, and I just love the peace and quiet, to be honest with you.
You do have a new album coming out, haven't you?
I haven't.
Tell us about that.
I recorded that there. I started recording that about 2 years ago with a bunch of jazz musicians over in Denmark, and them guys are young jazz musicians, and I'd written the songs, went in the studio, recorded it, took the session home, a couple of overdubs, and then mixed it in Copenhagen about 6 months ago, and it's sounding great. And the title is I Once Was a Hawk, but Now I'm a Dove.
Right, yeah.
And make of that what you will.
Excellent. So when can we get our hands on the album then?
Well, it's not released just yet, but you can go on and you can hear it on jobyfox.com, and you can listen to it.
Now, one of the good things about social media and indeed Facebook, we can keep in touch with each other, but the memories keep popping up, little photographs. And there's one appearing on the screen now of me and you down in Kong at the 60th anniversary of The Quiet Man, when we got to meet a true lady and a true movie star, Maureen O'Hara.
That's right, man. The whole thing was just, a total surreal experience. And God knows we had fun. We had great fun. It was really 3 days, wasn't it? Really,
Yeah,
it was
it
3
was,
days,
yeah.
And it was absolutely pinch me moments.
It was. I mean, we were sitting there and we're hanging out with Maureen O'Hara in her bedroom in the hotel in Ashford Castle, you know.
It's like, no one would believe
Nobody
it.
would believe this.
No
And we're
one
hearing all
would.
these great stories about John Wayne and Burt Lancaster and people like that.
right.
But just being in that village where The Quiet Man was filmed as well,
Yeah.
with the legend who was in the movie, you know, that was surreal.
For me too, there was a personal dynamic to it, because my father, I remember my father, a father of 10 children, and he worked so hard. I remember one Christmas, The Quiet Man came on, and he laughed and he laughed and he laughed. And I literally remember sitting in the corner watching my father being relaxed and happy, and it really stuck in my mind. And he would have been thrilled about it. Of course, he died, you know what I mean, naturally.
Nobody believed all those years later we'd be listening to the stories of how that movie was made, you
It
know?
was just completely, and I'm going to say this too, Daniel Donald was there.
Yeah.
And I remember, growing up in West Belfast, people made a few jokes about Daniel and all this here kind of stuff. He was the nicest guy.
Yeah.
He was a nice guy, and I remember when we were sharing that sort of dressing room, the room that we all had, the green room, if you like.
Yes, yeah.
And when I walked in, first of all, Daniel says, "Hello, I'm Daniel," and he shook my hand. He said, "What's your name?" And I says, "Joby." He never forgot. Over those 2 days, he made me tea. He got me sandwiches. He says, "Get over there and get them sandwiches." He says, "Before I am taking them." He looked after me. Such a lovely guy.
Oh, indeed. One memory that we'll never forget.
Never forget. And of course, there's things we can't talk about.
Okay, of course there are. Of course they are. Which we'll talk about when the cameras are switched on. So
And it was all...
It was all good. It was all good. It was all good.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you to do one more song before you leave us. What are you
Yeah,
going to do this time? It's a pretty historical song, isn't it?
Yes, I love doing this song, particularly when I'm here in Belfast, back to Belfast and doing the gigs and all the rest of it. And this song is called Don't Come to My Rescue. And it's a song about Robert Emmet, the great Irishman who come from the Protestant tradition. And I remember as I was 14 reading about him, and I remember being so impressed by that he loved Ireland, and as I say, he came from the Protestant tradition. But as the story unfolds with Emmet, he kind of romanticised revolution, and it cost him his life, And as a 14-year-old boy, I remember thinking, if I have a son, I'm going to call him Emmet.
Yeah.
And as a poignant reminder that never to be sectarian and never treat anybody just as a religion, and always treat everybody as an individual and respect their views in life and all of that. And so I named him Emmet. I have a 40-year-old son called Emmet Fox, and that's where there's a bit of a connection there, So that the song's about Robert Emmet, and Robert Emmet was a lover, really.
Yeah.
But he just got mixed up with things,
Exactly, yeah,
He just got mixed up, and it's a bit tragic and all of that, but beautiful at the same time.
Well, we'll hear the song now, but in the meantime, Joby, it's always good to see you. Thank you so much for coming in.
No problem. Oh, I'm leaving tomorrow, going to ground. Thomas Street's quiet, I still hear the sound of my heart.
my heart is beating. Oh, I'll sleep in the morning, travel by dark from Marshall Street Lane, where we lit the spark. Oh, I love you, and I forgive you. Oh, I don't come to my rescue. Oh, I love you. The voice in our heads tore us apart. The voice in our heads made stones of our hearts. My days are numbered, I shall part. A terrible beauty is born. War is so cruel, cold and obscene. I'll never go back to where I've been. Oh, I love you, but I long to be free. Oh, I don't come to my rescue. Oh, I love you. The voice in our heads tore us apart. The voice in our heads made stones of our hearts. My days are numbered, I shall part. A terrible beauty, a terrible beauty, a terrible beauty is born.
Always good to see Joby Fox in the NVTV studios. That's all we have time for on the show this week. Big thank you to all my guests. We'll see you back here same time next week. Bye-bye.